In lesson 1 of this section, we'll learn about the 4 types of light. These are hard light, soft light, specular light and diffused light. Having a good grasp of these is immensely important in photo manipulation. So let's kick it off and explore them one by one. Let's start with the first two, hard light and soft light. The difference between hard light and soft light lies within the shadows and not the light itself. When a light produces clear-cut and sharp shadows, it is called a hard light. Looking at these photos, we can see that the edges of the shadows are very sharp. This means they have a hard light. On the other hand, when a light produces blurry shadows, it is called a soft light. The examples here all have shadows with soft blurred edges. Therefore, these images have a soft light. Any kind of light source can be hard or soft, and therefore cast hard or soft shadows. And that depends on 2 things. The first one is the size of the light source compared to that of the subject. So the light source can be the same size as the subject. It can be smaller than the subject, and it can be larger as well. These all produce a different type of shadow, as we'll see later on. And second, is the distance between the subject and the light source. So the light source can be close to the subject, or it can be far away. And again, this would produce a different kind of shadow. But to understand that better, let's first see how light works. We have this light source that is emitting light waves. Some of these waves will go straight ahead and pass through the doorway. Some light rays will hit the wall and bounce back. And some will hit the edge of the wall and bounce inwards. And we call this reflection. If we had a door with glass, the light passing through the transparent glass would be called refracted light, because it's passing through a transparent object. Now, some of the light would hit the corners of the wall and bend outwards like this. Such a thing is called diffraction, and this is particularly interesting for us. Why? Because the bigger the light source is, compared to the object, the more it diffracts, resulting in softer shadows. Let's go into further detail about this, and see how the shadow would behave when the light hits something other than a wall. In this diagram, the light source is smaller than the object. And what's happening is that the object is blocking the light, creating a shadow. Now, because the light source is smaller than the object, the light waves are traveling outward. Since the light is not bending inward, we don't get any diffraction, therefore a hard shadow is created. And that's why it's called hard light. But what happens when the size of the light is larger than the object? In that case, some light rays would hit the edge of the object and bend inwards, creating diffraction. And as we mentioned earlier, with diffraction, a soft shadow is created. This is what we would call soft light. But if we move the light source away, its relative size to the object becomes smaller. And the smaller the light source, the less soft the shadow becomes. In fact, if you move it away enough, the light source becomes smaller in relation to the object, creating hard shadows. The sun is the best example of this. Its actual size is more than 100 times that of our planet, but its relative perceived size could be the same or even smaller than a human's head. And that's why the sun casts hard shadows. It's essentially a small light source in this context. Let's do a recap. The difference between hard light and soft light lies within the shadows and not the light itself. Any light can be hard or soft, and this depends on the size and distance. Hard light is created when the light source is smaller in relation to the object. Soft light is created when the light source is bigger in relation to the object. If the light source is bigger than the object, but you move it away, the shadows start becoming harder as its relative size becomes smaller. As I mentioned at the beginning of this section, light must also be considered when shooting photos or choosing stock images for our artwork. Besides looking for matching perspectives, we also need to make sure that we choose photos with the same type of light. To determine what type of light a photo has, we need to look at the shadows. If we look at the composite we've worked on in section 1, we can see that there are no hard shadows. All photos have soft shadows, and that's why we can use them together in one composite. But what if we were to replace this tiger on the right with this other tiger? Although its perspective matches with the artwork, there is something off. That's because it's a hard light photo, which we've placed in a soft light environment together with other objects that also have soft light. The hard shadows are easily noticeable here on the shoulder, the back, and left side of the face. Let's try another example using this photo of a woman. The perspective of the woman is similar to the one of the background, and in that sense, it fits well. However, the shadows are quite hard. You can notice this on her arms, face, and also the shadow under her feet. Because the background has soft shadows, this photo of the woman could never be matched with it, no matter how hard we try. And bear in mind, that although in photo compositing, you can manipulate many things, shadows on complex objects are the one thing that is impossible to manipulate. Or at least, it's massively difficult, especially when you have a hard light image to be matched with a soft light one. There are still a few occasions where we can cheat when it comes to light, and I will go through these later on. But going back to our image, we can see that the color is not matching either, and that can sometimes throw you off when trying to identify shadows. So, for now, I will use a black and white adjustment layer to not let color get in the way. I always use this little trick when choosing stock images for my artworks. With the image switched to black and white and without the distraction of color, let's examine the photo again. Yes, there is still something that looks off. As I said, it's the type of light in the two images which is different. The background photo has soft light, while the woman's photo has hard light. It's not a stark difference, but it's there. So remember, when choosing stock imagery or taking our own photos, we need to make sure that the same type of light is used. Soft and hard light are not the only types of light. There are another two types of light, which are specular and diffuse light. Unlike hard and soft light, the difference between these two types of light lies within the light source itself. So let's see how to paint specular and diffuse light sources. So what is specular light? Let's say we're in a dark room and turn on a flashlight. We see that the light source is brighter in the center, and less intense at the edges, which fades into darkness. The center is always brighter. This is called specular light. Very often, I see artworks where photo manipulators draw light coming from a source incorrectly. Some artists just paint the glow and hue of the light but forget to paint the center part, making it look fake. Specular light should be like the examples here, where the center part is brighter and less transparent than the outer part. So whenever you are painting specular light, make sure that the core or center is lighter and less transparent. On the other hand, a diffused light is an even spread of light across the width of the beam. This usually happens when the light passes through a diffusing material, such as a sheer curtain, softbox, clouds, etc. When light hits a diffusing material, the light rays are scattered, resulting in an even spread of light. This is called diffuse light. If we look at the light in these examples, we can see that the middle part is not brighter, but it has an even spread. That's because they are diffused light sources. When painting diffused light, we need to paint a solid light color with a glow all around. So, how is all this relevant to photo compositing? Many times in photo compositing, we have to paint the shadows and light sources ourselves. To do this correctly, we need to understand how things work, so we know what type of shadow or light we need to paint. Also, this helps us choose the right stock photo or shoot photos with the correct lighting. Let's do a quick recap. The difference between hard light and soft light lies within the shadows and not the light itself. This depends on the size of the light source in relation to that of the object. When choosing or taking images for your composite, you need to make sure that the same type of light is used. Either hard or soft light. The difference between specular light and diffuse light lies in the light itself. Specular light is when the light source is brighter in the center, and less intense at the edges, which fades into darkness. Diffused light is when light hits a diffusing material, the light rays are scattered which results in an even spread of light.